Okay, while the solder iron is heating up, I'm gonna go over the cable real quick. So, and I'll probably touch upon it when I put the cable back on, but there's two colors. There's to me, a solid black, and then there's like a black and white or black and gray. The black and gray goes to the positive. You do need to have that. So typically what I do is I actually take this shrink wrap off and then just hit it with the flux, which is I've learned to be is like my best friend, and hit it with just dab a little bit of flux on there, hit it with the soldering iron, and these come off really easily, and I'll show that in a few minutes. So but right now I'm gonna move on to trying to get the BMS off. I just have a very basic soldering iron that I got from the cell hasher from Luke when I ordered the cell hasher, just, I don't know, convenience wise. Obviously, if you're doing a ton of these, I would probably invest in a better soldering iron. Maybe even a cordless one. This one's corded. But I'm not going to put a lot of phones. I'm basically only going to build 2 cell hashers. So if I was building a bunch more, trust me, I would definitely get a little bit better quality solder or ease of use. And then I just kept the tip on it that came with, and it comes with some other tips. And again, there's probably a better one to use. I think this one on the very end that has kind of it looks like that's what I've seen the other guy use, or something closer to that. But for now, this is what I'm using. All right. So again, flux is good. It just doesn't take much. Almost like your thermo paste rice size. And by the way, I got Dad Rock playing in the background, so it is what I am. All right, let's see if this works today. Basically, I'm just trying to put some pressure on the BMS. There we go. Oh, maybe. Getting close. There you go. That was probably one of my cleaner attempts, to be honest. So now on to the next one. I think I rubbed some of the flux off. Let me put a little more flux back on there. I wish I could explain what flux does, but I don't know. It just works. That's all I know. And this does heat up, so that's why I was kind of trying to use that tool. All right. I think one of the other tips would give me better or more contact surface on these, and I think that's what would be helpful. But basically, there's solder. This is my guess, is there is a very small amount of solder that's on these connectors, and you're basically just trying to reheat the solder so you can pull it off. There we go. There we go. Again, I ain't gonna lie, probably my 2 cleanest removals I've had. And I don't know, I'll have to ask some of the guys, but see, those little bits of solder, I think, is what's holding these pieces on. I don't know if the guys are trying to sell these batteries back or put them on eBay or not, but this is probably the first one that I've done that could reasonably could be sold. The rest of them I've kind of torn up these pretty gnarly. So anyway, I just put them off to the side. And then I'll get this cleaned up a little bit, and then the next thing I'm going to do is I'll bring in the cable. And I'll measure, well, I don't measure right away. I usually solder this first, and then I'll measure or cut the cable, and I'll measure and solder this here. The other thing that I've learned to do, because I do like to put a hole down about in this area, so I'll feed this through the cable first. So I'll have the cable and this laying off to the side, and then I'll solder this on, and then because of the way I do it, I can slide a shrink wrap cover over the top of the 2 solders after. So we'll see if we can get that figured out today. Okay, now I'm just going to do a little bit of soldering, and again, I'm going to reiterate, this is not as difficult as, or I've gotten better even with a short amount of time, but basically I'm just going to place a little bit of, I've got some flux down there already. It helps, I think it keeps the solder from oxidizing too quickly, and it makes it just more flexible for you to put a little bit of solder on. And I'm just going to basically create like again, kind of a rice size piece of solder, and and then it'll cool pretty quickly. I'm going to do it there, and then I'm going to do it there. And when I get ready to cut the cable, I'm going to put just a little bit of solder on the end of the cable. And then basically you use flux again, and you put it on it, and you reheat the old solder. You slide in the cable and the 2 solders, and then once you heat it up and you get that put in there, then the solder will cool like within about a second, and then basically it's solidified. So here we go. I probably need a little bit more solder usually. See how it's changing color and it heats up. There we go. That's about all I need. There we go. So there's that. So I'm going to set that to the side for a second. Now I'm going to bring in the cable. Actually, let me drill the hole first before I forget. So I'm going to try and put the hole down in this area. So I'm going to measure this. And it's just a guesstimate, but I can see, you know, about right in here. I got a black marker as like to target it. What about right there? What I've learned so far, I started with them up here, I moved it to there, and now I've decided down here works really nicely because for one, I can run the cable pretty easily. The other thing is just the way I have the brackets and the cell hasher set up. I was bumping into the the brackets run about here and here, so I was like the wires were coming out right where I was just running into the brackets. So I've got those installed. I don't plan on taking them out and redoing them, but some guys don't even put the covers back on. I personally, I don't know. We'll see in the long run if it's a better idea to have the covers on them, because it maybe will help keep dust from out of the phone itself. But it's what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna drill a hole there, and then I'm gonna feed the cable through, and then I'll show you how I'm gonna solder the cable.